The Whitestone Hospital story, paraphrased version. An African-American woman arrived at the emergency room, writhing in agony, yet rather than receiving assistance, the Caucasian physician barely glanced her way before dismissing her condition as mere nervousness. Moments afterward, she fell unconscious in the lobby while bystanders averted their gaze. However, her spouse had just arrived, and when this man entered to find his wife lying senseless on the frigid hospital tiles, his response ensured the entire medical facility would remember this incident forever. Before we begin this account, please let us know your location. We appreciate hearing your perspectives. Angela Moore, an African-American high school history instructor, was immersed in preparing her lessons when an unexpected, piercing stomach pain seized her. It twisted like a metal fist, crushing the vitality from her midsection, draining all color from her complexion. Her breathing faltered as she stifled a scream. Her pulse pounded frantically against her chest, seeming ready to explode. This transcended ordinary discomfort. It was menacing, a bodily alarm. Without hesitation, Angela recognized she needed immediate medical attention. She flagged down a cab, pleading with the driver to speed toward Whitestone Hospital, the city's most prestigious facility, where she held on to desperate hope. Entering Whitestone, the harsh antiseptic odor assaulted her senses, while an penetrating chill seemed to slice through her flesh. Various announcements echoed through the speakers, constantly reinforcing that everyone here was merely another case number. At the brilliantly illuminated front desk, Angela faintly caught whispered gossip about Whitestone, a facility where treatment quality depended on social position and racial background. Yet the torment now overshadowed all rational thinking. She sought only escape from the suffering that devoured her. Just before Angela's turn, an elegantly dressed lady approached. The weary-appearing clerk immediately transformed into radiant warmth, her expression brightening upon seeing the sophisticated white woman. "Certainly, Miss Sarah, your appointment is prepared. Please proceed directly inside," the receptionist purred, her fingers swiftly handling the documentation as though everything had been prearranged. Angela gripped her handbag firmly, stifling a sharp intake of breath. The clerk gave Angela a cursory look, superficially evaluating her naturally dark complexion and modest attire, then resumed her discussion, entirely ignoring Angela's evident suffering. Eventually, the receptionist addressed Angela, her tone sharp. "What assistance do you require, miss?" Angela, battling the torment, replied with a quivering voice. "I'm experiencing intense stomach pain, breathing difficulties, and my pulse is racing." The receptionist typed forcefully on her keyboard, muttering, "Routine discomfort, mild respiratory issues, appears excessively worried." She didn't bother looking up, coldly gesturing toward the seating section. "The emergency department is swamped. Please find a seat and wait. Your condition isn't as urgent as other cases." In the receptionist's thoughts, Dr. Kellen's instructions resonated. Those charity patients, particularly the black women, frequently dramatized to receive priority. Simply make them wait. Don't squander my time. She trusted Kellen completely, having been instructed by him on effective patient evaluation. She felt no remorse, even believing she was acting appropriately to help the hospital function more efficiently. The receptionist's dismissal struck Angela like freezing water. The agony intensified more severely than before, accompanied by tightness in her chest. She shook, her legs suddenly weakening. I'm truly in tremendous pain. I feel like I might faint. Please give me priority," her voice cracked, tears cascading down her cheeks. The receptionist still avoided eye contact, merely pointing indifferently to the waiting seats. "I've documented it. You must wait following procedure." She turned away, completely overlooking the small, dried blood mark on Angela's sleeve from unconsciously clawing herself in anguish. Angela collapsed into a seat, her frame trembling uncontrollably, her gaze filled with complete desperation. She attempted to voice an angry objection, but only strangled weeping emerged. The intercom continued announcing other patients' names, each call like a blade turning in her wound. Surrounding her were detached, cautious stares. Angela felt entirely isolated in a crowd of people. The receptionist reluctantly glanced at Angela, quickly assessing her before returning to her screen. She had already forwarded a message to Dr. Kellen, Medicaid patient, typical stomach pain, appears overly anxious, noted as having exaggeration tendencies. "Very well, proceed to examination room 3, the receptionist stated curtly, her eyes filled with judgment. "Await the..." Physician. Angela dragged herself into the cramped, frigid space. The intense disinfectant smell permeated the atmosphere. Her entire frame shook uncontrollably. Her complexion was pale, her hands clutching her abdomen. She fought to control the nausea. Within minutes, Dr. Kellen arrived. He was a towering, somewhat heavy-set gentleman in his late 50s, with graying hair combed backward, exposing a prominent forehead and icy blue eyes, fatigued yet tinged with superiority. Kellen's expression typically carried an air of contempt, as though everything remained under his command. He carried a bundle of patient records, his attention sweeping over Angela and focusing on the receptionist's notation. In Kellen's mind, a routine thought emerged, another attention seeker wasting my time. Kellen had been practicing for more than 20 years, and during that period he had created his personal patient categorization method, based not on medical science but on bias. He believed he wasn't prejudiced, merely being practical and optimizing his time for genuinely important patients, namely, white patients who paid full taxes and carried quality insurance. The assumption that black patients and Medicaid recipients often exaggerated symptoms was deeply embedded in him. He felt no guilt, even believing he was doing the right thing. "You're experiencing abdominal discomfort? Since when?" Kellen inquired monotonously, his voice detached, not making direct eye contact with Angela. Angela attempted to elaborate, her voice shaking. "Yes, I've had pain since morning. Now I'm also having trouble breathing and my heart is pounding." Angela groaned as he skimmed the note. He didn't request additional information, simply commanding, "Lie down." He positioned his stethoscope on her stomach briefly, pressing gently on several areas. Angela whimpered quietly. "Where is the pain located?" "Here, doctor," Angela whispered, indicating her lower abdomen. He offered a dismissive grunt, then abruptly rose, turned away and began writing. Angela felt a chill traverse her spine. She was merely a number. As I suspected, Kellen thought smugly, nothing significant, just ordinary abdominal discomfort from anxiety. These people are always like this, exaggerating their symptoms. This simply wastes my time and detracts from real emergencies. After a moment of silence, Kellen turned back, his gaze fixed on the exit. "You only have minor stomach pain, probably due to excessive worry. This is typical for people," he paused, his attention subtly dropping to her brown skin. "For people with somewhat unstable mental states. I'll prescribe some pain relief and a mild tranquilizer. Return home and rest." He spoke confidently with no intention of further examination, but his deep-seated racial bias and unprofessionalism led him to completely dismiss the possibility of Angela's serious condition. A wave of outrage surged through Angela. It felt like being slapped. Angela's heart constricted, excessive worry, unstable mental state. She could barely comprehend what she was hearing. She wanted to object, to shout that this pain wasn't from anxiety, that it was genuinely excruciating, but her throat constricted. "But I feel truly ill." "It's not merely anxiety," Angela tried to say, tears forming. Kellen disregarded her words, shutting the file with a definitive snap. "I've given you my diagnosis. Simply take the medication, and if it doesn't improve, return later. We have numerous other patients waiting." He spoke coldly, turning to exit the room immediately. The door closed, leaving Angela alone in the indifferent space, tormented by physical agony and the pain of discrimination. The suffering intensified, stronger than ever. Angela believed she was dying. She struggled up from the examination table, her body wavering. "Doctor, I am not exaggerating," Angela called out, her voice broken and choked. "I'm in so much pain, my heart is racing, I can't breathe. Please, please run some tests. I know so many people who are misdiagnosed because they don't look sick enough." Tears streamed down her face, mixing with cold perspiration. I can barely stand anymore. I feel like I'm dying right in front of you. Save me, please save me." Kellen shrugged dismissively, buried in his notes. He ignored Angela's desperate plea, even feeling irritated that she dared to challenge his diagnosis. He saw no genuine despair in her eyes, only a troublesome case that needed quick dismissal. "I've made my diagnosis. You simply need to rest and take standard pain medication. Don't worry excessively. You should go home and make room for patients who actually need intervention." He handed her a prescription slip and turned away, closing all doors of hope. Angela trembled, her entire body collapsing, gripping the edge of the table. She no longer had strength to scream, only choked sobs. Kellen stood up abruptly, his face annoyed. He pointed to the door, his voice cold but firm. "If you don't calm down, I cannot continue with the examination. Please leave the room. We have other patients waiting." He turned his back, calling security. The humiliation and indignation festered within Angela, reaching their breaking point. Angela staggered out of the examination room, each step heavy as lead. The pain felt like 1,000 blades stabbing her abdomen, twisting deep into her bones. She had to support herself against the wall, her head spinning, everything around her becoming blurred. Her breathing became labored, each gasp feeling like it might be her final one. She tried to let out one last cry, but it was only a weak, choked sound, swallowed by her throat. All hope collapsed, her body giving way. She felt a penetrating cold seep into her skin. She stumbled to an empty chair in the waiting area, collapsing onto it, completely exhausted. Her head slumped against the cold wall, tears mixing with sweat, running down her pale face. Her eyes were completely vacant with despair, devoid of any vibrant light. Her entire body trembled uncontrollably. Her lips turned blue, and subtle convulsions began to set in. Angela held her phone, her hand shaking violently, dropping it once before summoning all her strength to pick it up, her last connection to life. She called Marcus, her voice shattered, stuttering, each word broken, interspersed with heavy coughs. She covered her mouth, her hand touching a small, fresh blood stain on her palm, a sign of severe internal bleeding. Her eyes widened in terror. "Marcus, I'm not okay," her voice broke, choked by a violent cough. "The doctors and nurses, they don't believe me. They say I'm exaggerating. Please come. I'm so scared. I'm afraid I won't make it. I don't want to die here. Please come quickly," she sobbed, her gasping breaths growing heavier. Her body began to convulse. "Marcus, I can't breathe anymore. Save me. I'm scared I won't make it. I don't want to die here. Please come quickly." Her voice grew fainter, weaker, like a dying flame. Despite being in an important meeting just a few miles from the hospital, Marcus Moore, a tall, powerfully built white tech executive, immediately sensed the utter urgency in Angela's every word. He had never heard his wife so panicked. Even a second's hesitation was too much. He abandoned the meeting, rushed out of his office, hailed a taxi, and urged the driver to go as fast as possible. The entire process, from Angela's call to Marcus' arrival at the hospital, took less than 15 minutes. The phone slipped from Angela's hand. She collapsed onto the chair, her entire body violently convulsing. Her mouth agape as she struggled to breathe, but only faint wheezing sounds escaped, then gradually faded. Her breathing became shallow, barely perceptible, flickering like a dying candle. She stared blankly at the ceiling, then slowly closed her eyes, completely unconscious. For a few seconds, no one noticed. The world continued. A few people walked by, glancing indifferently, assuming she was just a tired patient who had fallen asleep. The receptionist rushed over. Despite clearly seeing life draining from Angela, she remained slow, as if still clinging to Dr. Kellen's instructions and the rigid protocols she had been trained in. She didn't immediately call for emergency help, merely muttering, "She's just fainted. Why is she being so dramatic?" She pulled out her walkie-talkie but still hesitated for a few seconds before sending out an urgent distress signal. This initial stubborn delay in prioritizing Angela, compounded by those last crucial seconds, pushed her into a critical state that would have been irreversible without Marcus. The exact moment Angela fully collapsed, the hospital doors burst open and Marcus Moore, with his towering figure, dark brown hair, and striking pale skin, stormed in like a hurricane. He was tall, his shirt stained with coffee, his eyes red-rimmed from intense worry. His face was etched with extreme tension, radiating fear mixed with fury. He ran down the hallway, his eyes frantically searching. "Angela, where are you?" "I'm here. I called you a dozen times." And then he saw her. Angela lay sprawled on the cold tile floor near the reception desk, with a few nurses bending over her. She was clutching her stomach, but her hands had fallen limp. Her body slightly convulsing, her face ashen, her breathing shallow and faltering. a small, dried blood stain at the corner of her mouth, clearer than before. Utter dread squeezed Marcus's heart. His entire world seemed to crumble. Marcus's face contorted, his eyes shifting from despair to seething anger. A furious, uncontrollable roar erupted from his throat, echoing through the hallway. His voice, though hoarse from worry, carried the deep, powerful authority of a successful man, immediately drawing all eyes to him. "Angela, wake up. Is anyone here? My wife is dying." Marcus's shouts were swallowed by the cold air, but his despair and authority radiated powerfully, grabbing the attention of the entire emergency area. He glared at the panicked, stricken receptionist, his eyes burning into her. "What are you standing there for? Call for emergency immediately." His words were an accusation that pierced her conscience, and his commanding presence left her no room to evade. The receptionist trembled, immediately sending out an emergency alert and quickly coordinating with other nurses to get Angela onto a stretcher. Angela was rushed into the emergency area. Marcus followed, his hand tightly gripping his wife's, never leaving her side for a second. While Angela was being rushed into the emergency room, Marcus acted with the speed and decisiveness of a tech executive. He didn't immediately take photos or videos to post on social media. Instead, he immediately called his company's head of legal, David Chen, a sharp and reputable lawyer. Marcus didn't waste time with lengthy explanations, simply summarizing the urgent situation. "David, my wife is in critical condition at Whitestone. The doctors and nurses here were negligent, with clear signs of discrimination. I need you to investigate and gather evidence immediately. Ensure all security cameras are preserved, all records saved, and prepare for the biggest legal battle this hospital has ever seen. Mobilize your entire team. I want enough evidence so they can never escape justice." Next, he called his company's vice president of communications, a talented PR expert. "I need you to issue an urgent press release immediately. Accurately state the incident, my wife's condition, and the signs of discrimination. Contact major news channels, human rights organizations, and black community groups. I want this story to become a national focal point. Send the release to all my followers on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We will make Whitestone transparent about everything." Within less than 15 minutes of Angela's collapse, Marcus Media and Legal Machine had been activated. Calls to Whitestone Hospital from lawyers, reporters, and human rights organizations began pouring in, forcing the hospital's board of directors into an emergency meeting. The pressure from a powerful executive had immediately begun to take effect. Just hours after Angela's incident exploded in the media, Whitestone Hospital Director, Mr. Harris, faced a storm of fierce criticism. Officials from the press, human rights organizations, and even state authorities kept pouring in. The hospital's stock plummeted, and small protests had already begun outside. In Director Harris's office, the air was suffocatingly tense. Mr. Harris, a white man in his 60s, was pale, beads of sweat on his forehead. His long-standing composure and exhaustion had turned into utter panic. Dr. Kellen stood there, initially with a smug and stubborn look, but his face had hardened with surprise at the immense pressure. He had been urgently summoned that morning and was stunned to find himself at the center of a national scandal. The nurse, Miss Evelyn Reed, was also present, her head bowed, her tears long dry, but her eyes still red from fear. Marcus Moore sat opposite Director Harris, his face resolute, cold, and uncompromising. He didn't speak much, merely placing a thick stack of documents on the table, quickly compiled by his legal team. These were all the proofs he had: recordings of Angela's calls, testimonies from conscientious hospital staff, detailed medical reports on the diagnostic delays, and especially his legal team's report on discriminatory behavior. Director Harris trembled as he scanned the documents. He tried to maintain composure, his voice hoarse. "Mr. Moore, we have grasped the situation. This is a serious, unacceptable mistake. Marcus coldly cut him off, his voice full of authority and showing no mercy. "Mistake. Mr. Harris, my wife almost died due to this blatant racial discrimination from Dr. Kellen and this nurse. They prioritized a white patient while neglecting her. I don't need empty apologies. I need justice and fundamental change. If you don't act immediately and publicly, I will ensure that Whitestone Hospital becomes a national symbol of medical discrimination, and not just the press, but criminal investigators will also get involved." Kellen at this point was still seething with anger and defensiveness. I just followed professional protocol. She clearly showed signs of excessive anxiety. I didn't discriminate. I just made a diagnosis based on my experience. He stubbornly clung to his beliefs, completely unaware of the severity of the issue, and thought he was being wronged. Marcus glared at Kellen, his voice sharp as a knife. Professional protocol? You ignored a dying woman because she was black and had Medicaid. You doubted her because of your prejudice. That indifference almost ended her life. You and this nurse neglected a patient based on her skin color and insurance, and you, Director Harris, you have tolerated this for too long. Ms. Evelyn Reed, the nurse, stood beside them, not daring to speak, only bowing her head, tears streaming down her face. Her expression filled with shame and fear. The fear of legal repercussions and remorse for what she had done had utterly broken her. Director Harris sighed heavily, his eyes helpless. He knew he had no other choice. Dr. Kellen, you will be immediately suspended and formally investigated by the State Medical Board for severe discrimination and medical negligence. You face the risk of having your medical license permanently revoked. Ms. Evelyn Reed will be immediately fired for gross negligence and unprofessionalism. Our hospital will also not provide any references for her, ensuring she will find it difficult to return to work in the medical field. Our hospital will publicly apologize to the Moore family and will conduct a comprehensive reform of our patient intake and assessment procedures to ensure no bias occurs in the future. We will cooperate fully with authorities and the media. Kellen froze, his face ashen, his eyes a mix of shock, anger, and terror. He said nothing more, merely stepping back, his eyes vacant. Evelyn Reed sobbed uncontrollably, the ostracizing glances from colleagues making her tremble. She walked out of the room, her shoulders slumped, her face utterly lost. When Dr. Kellen returned home after the intense confrontation at the hospital, he was still tense and angry. He believed he was the victim of an unreasonable attack, wrongly accused of discrimination, which he considered fabricated. He wanted to lash out at someone, at the system that had put him in this situation. That night, his daughter Mia sat in the living room, the phone's light casting a worried glow on her face. She had seen the news about her teacher, Angela Moore, on social media and major news sites, with her father's name constantly mentioned in critical articles. Mia's heart clenched as she read the community's angry and disappointed comments. When Kellen walked in, Mia looked up, her eyes fixed on her father, devoid of any warmth. "Dad, what did you do to Ms. Angela?" Mia asked, her voice trembling but full of accusation. She held out her phone, its screen displaying a news article with a large headline, "Whitestone Doctor Accused of Racism, Leaving Patient Critical." Kellen was startled. He hadn't expected the news to spread so quickly, and certainly not that his daughter would know. He tried to maintain his dismissive facade, his tone still tinged with irritation. "This isn't as simple as you think, Mia. They're deliberately exaggerating everything to target me. I just did my job." She was exaggerating her symptoms. "Don't you understand?" Mia shook her head, tears welling up. "No, Dad, I've read everything. Ms. Angela is a very good teacher. She would never exaggerate. Besides," Mia paused, her eyes filled with pain and surprise as she looked at Kellen. "Ms. Angela is my history teacher. She teaches so well, always cares about her students. You ignored her just because she's black and has low-income insurance. You were wrong, Dad. I can't believe you did that. I'm so disappointed in you." Mia's voice broke, her words like 1,000 needles piercing Kellen's heart. Kellen froze, his face pale. Angela Moore, he had never paid attention to that name, though it appeared in her medical file. Now hearing it from his daughter's lips, the truth struck him like a sharp knife. This was the very teacher Mia loved, the one he had just judged and cruelly ignored. This realization was a harder blow than any accusation or penalty. The utter disappointment in his daughter's eyes, the child he had always loved and wanted to be a role model for, shattered every defense mechanism and ounce of arrogance within him. He suddenly realized how profoundly he had erred, not just with Angela, but with the very values he wanted to teach his child. Genuine shame and regret began to gnaw at him deeper than any legal fear. He had lost everything, and more importantly, he had lost his daughter's trust. Kellen bowed his head, hands covering his face, whispering, "Mia, I was wrong. I'm so sorry." Tears of belated remorse streamed down his pale face. He wrapped his arms tightly around Mia, sobbing. Mia hugged him back, tears flowing, but within that embrace, there was understanding and a faint glimmer of hope for change. After that night, Angela remained in critical condition for many days at the hospital, her life hanging by a thread. After numerous meticulous tests and examinations, doctors confirmed she had systemic lupus erythematosus, a complex autoimmune disease, and had suffered severe complications with peritonitis and acute anemia. The delay in initial intake and diagnosis had severely worsened her condition, putting her at high risk of death and requiring intensive, prolonged treatment. Hence, she had to undergo emergency surgery to address the peritonitis complication, something that could have been avoided had she been examined and diagnosed promptly. After many weeks of recovery and intensive treatment at the hospital, little by little, small signs of improvement began to appear. Her breathing became more even, no longer those choked gasps. The pale color of her lips gradually returned to a healthy pink, like a flower slowly blooming after a storm. Each day was a small battle, but Angela was winning. This was thanks to the dedicated care of the new medical team who continuously monitored her, adjusted treatment protocols, and most importantly, saw her as a human being who needed saving. Angela was moved from the intensive care unit to a regular patient room. Though still weak, she was out of critical danger. The door to a new journey, a battle with chronic illness, had opened. After a long battle with illness, when Angela had recovered and was discharged from the hospital, Marcus took her to a small, quiet coffee shop near their home. Angela was still weak, but her spirits were better. Just then, the door opened and Dr. Kellen and his daughter Mia entered. Both looked as if they had aged 10 years. Kellen, stripped of all arrogance, was merely a broken man, his eyes sunken from sleeplessness and regret. Mia, her eyes red-rimmed, stepped forward, her hand tightly gripping her father's. She looked at Angela, her voice soft but full of sincerity. "Ms. Angela, I'm so sorry. I didn't know my dad would do something so terrible. I'm so sorry for what my dad caused you." Tears streamed down Mia's cheeks. She offered Angela a bouquet of white lilies, a symbol of purity and sincere apology. Kellen, his face flushed with utter humiliation, bowed deeply, almost not daring to look at Angela. His voice was hoarse, choked with emotion. "Ms. Moore, I don't know what to say. I truly regret my negligence, my prejudices that blinded me. I was wrong. I almost took your life. I know my apology cannot change what happened, but I hope you can give me a chance to atone. I've lost everything, but the most painful thing is that I hurt you and disappointed my daughter." He no longer dared to rationalize or defend himself, only sincere remorse and the pain of losing his career, honor, and his daughter's trust. Angela looked at Kellen and Mia. The emotional wound was still there, but seeing the genuine remorse from both father and daughter, especially Mia, who was not directly involved but still felt responsible, eased some of her pain. Marcus placed a hand on Angela's shoulder, his eyes encouraging her. Angela took a deep breath, her eyes moist but firm. "Dr. Kellen, I went through a nightmare. Your prejudice almost killed me. I cannot say I forgive you immediately, but I believe in change. The most important thing now is for you to learn your lesson and commit to changing, so no one else has to suffer what I suffered." She looked at Mia, gently smiling. "Mia, thank you. You showed me there's still hope. Always be the voice of what's right, okay?" After that meeting, Angela continued her recovery journey, not just physically but mentally. Post-traumatic stress disorder lingered, but she bravely confronted it. She began to share her story more publicly, becoming a strong advocate for equality in healthcare. Angela started working with Marcus and several human rights organizations to establish an educational program on unconscious bias in medicine, aiming to ensure no one else would endure what she had. Marcus, leveraging his influence as a tech executive, continued to drive change. He partnered with major hospitals nationwide to implement diversity and inclusion training programs. Angela's story became a case study, taught in medical schools and healthcare staff training courses. As for Kellen, he had his medical license revoked. His family, including Mia, faced a wave of criticism and ostracization from the community. Kellen was shunned, unable to find comparable work, and faced judgmental stares whenever he went out. Mia was also affected. Friends distanced themselves, and she was teased at school because of her father's actions. Kellen's regret deepened as he saw his daughter suffer the consequences of his mistakes. However, just when everything seemed hopeless, something unexpected happened. It was Angela and Marcus who publicly defended Kellen and Mia. Marcus, in a national television interview, clearly stated, "We sought justice for Angela, and we got it. But that doesn't mean we want to destroy the life of someone who has recognized their mistakes." Dr. Kellen was wrong, but he faced the consequences and is truly remorseful. We believe in second chances, and more importantly, we don't want a child like Mia to suffer punishment for an adult's mistakes. We need education, not destruction. Angela, in a moving speech at a healthcare equality conference, also shared, "I endured unspeakable pain, but I also witnessed genuine remorse. I believe Dr. Kellen can change, and Mia doesn't deserve to bear this burden." Our society needs to learn to offer opportunities for atonement, so people like Kellen can contribute more positively, rather than being pushed into a spiral of despair. Thanks to Angela and Marcus's strong advocacy, public opinion gradually shifted. Kellen, after many struggling years, finally found work in community healthcare, where he could use his medical knowledge to help vulnerable people, no longer based on status or skin color. It was a long road to atonement, but Kellen had begun that journey with Mia as his motivation and companion. Mia later became an active social activist, fighting for equality and justice. She and Angela remained in touch, building a special bond based on understanding and hope. The story of the Whitestone nightmare became a costly lesson, a reminder that justice always finds its way, and the voices of the oppressed, however small, will eventually be heard. It is also a story of remorse, of second chances, and of change that can come from the most unexpected places, where compassion triumphs over anger. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.